Hello, my friends, and welcome to Artur Rehi podcast. Today we have a very special guest from Estonia. He is an Estonian ambassador to Ukraine, and before that, he worked about 20 years in the Estonian Foreign Intelligence Agency. Welcome, Kaimo Kuusk.
Hello.
I'm so glad you found the time to come to the podcast. I have a few questions prepared for you, so I'm gonna start with the first one.
That's right.
That's right. So, how is life in wartime Kiev?
Well, it's like being in a war, and it depends on actually the time. It was one feeling 24th of February early morning when the large-scale war started, because war itself, Russian aggression against Ukraine, have lasted almost 9 years already. So it was one feeling, 24th of February early morning. It was one feeling on a third day there. It was another feeling visiting President of Ukraine with our president and Free Baltics. And it was, let's say, already something different when we after short break returned to Kiev, stayed there, and now living there. So there are some things which you are getting used to, which you shouldn't probably, because war is not something you have to get used to, but that's curfew, for example, so you are not moving around at night. So if you are partying, you should start early, because otherwise you will party until 5 in the morning when the curfew will finish. It's air raids, air alarms, let's say air attack alarms, which can get you, but alarm itself is not bad. Bad is what is going along with alarms, and that's the missiles and drones. My team, part of the team at the moment, are in Kiev, so they have felt it recently. New Year's Eve night, 2 nights in a row. I was several times caught up myself, or catched in the morning when you are hearing that now, the attack can come. Then you have around 8 minutes, because it takes time. Ukraine is huge country. So if the missile starts outside of Ukraine, from Belarusian side, Black Sea, or from Caspia Sea direction, it takes around 8 to 10 minutes to reach capital of Ukraine. So you have then time to think, what will you do actually?
Clock begins,
And if you hear already air defense blasts, then you suddenly have very short time. Then you need to either be in a shelter or try to hide somewhere actually. So otherwise it's quite dangerous. So let's quickly some basic emotions, basic feelings actually. What it is to be in Kiev. There's not enough electricity also from the October. So we are traveling from Ukraine to Estonia by car. Another alternative is by train. There's no airplanes flying, obvious reasons. If there's cruise missiles in the air, airplanes are not in the air. And when you are crossing the border and suddenly see the Polish towns lightened up in a dark night, you feel that, hey, come on guys, it's wasting the electricity, because you're getting used to lack of that.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense here we are in Tallinn right now, the capital of Estonia, and you see these huge Ukrainian flags in neon lights, and of course I'm for showing them, but then the Ukrainian electricity cuts like that, it gets like a little bit mixed feeling in me that we're putting so much electricity into, well, at least it goes into the right cause, showing the flag.
It's important for Ukrainians.
I think so too.
This it gives them absolutely needed feeling that they are not alone.
Yeah.
And well, I think that's the place I'm as a taxpayer ready to pay my my tax money a little bit
Yes.
to show Ukrainians that hey, we in Europe we are with them.
Yes, I completely agree. But I want to go back a little bit to the very moment when the war started. I read in an article about what you were doing, and I think the viewers would be very interesting to listen. What exactly happened? What it went through your mind in the realization, in the moment that you realized the war now started?
It was early in the morning, around 5
Yeah.
o'clock, and it was blasts of air defense and cruise missiles which woke me up. So first feelings, you wanted to curse. Some Estonian devil meaning words like kurat or something like that.
Yeah.
Because you're realizing that now it started. What somehow mentally you have been preparing for 2 months, something like that, but actually not being ready at all. So some things you have thought through what you are doing. We had our grab bag ready. So you don't need to start to run around your house or flat and think what you put into your backpack actually in that second. Then to get into some movement, to get yourself move, you do the toothbrush. Brushing your tooth. Yeah, well, so that's the morning routine you need to use. So you are
So it
waking
didn't
up.
change because of the war.
No, not at all. You take this minute or two to get your head clear as well. What will
Yeah.
be the next step? Then you think I need energy, but I can't eat sandwich because I don't have I don't you don't feel hunger on that moment. Adrenaline is pumping,
Yeah.
so I like this sweet. I don't know even how to explain foreign audience. Sweet custard, like small desserts covered with chocolate. It's
Kohuke?
called kohuke,
Oh,
and they are producing it in Ukraine as well. Actually,
I didn't know that. Wow.
similar, but the best ones you can get in Estonia and Latvia. So I took one of those because I knew I need energy, and sweet thing you can eat. Easier than some, I don't know, porridge. You don't
I
have
have
time
to
for
write
porridge
to
as well.
them to sponsor this episode because when war started, the first thing that went.
Yeah, but we didn't mention the label
Of
concrete one
course,
actually. That's I know what is my favorite, but you can't get it in Kiev. So yeah, I took one of those. Then I got a call from capital, from Tallinn, Situations Center of our Minister of Foreign Affairs called me and said that hey, it started, and I answered something not maybe very wise, but yeah, I understood it, something like that. So I dressed up, took my grab bag, and I walked to the hotel where our minister stayed. So our foreign minister was in a town, arrived evening before. So I went there to woke her up and to move together to embassy and then to organize a transport for minister to be safely out of the country, which started to be in a war.
And they bombed Kiev that day, didn't they?
They shoot Kiev, not exactly city center was hit. But Kiev was hit. Also, airfields close to Kiev. Hostomel was one, but also the other direction. southern direction, eastern direction as well. Actually, there are several airfields around Kiev. So there's the headquarter of military intelligence got hit, but of course intelligence didn't wait for Russians to hit them actually. So they had left it already. So it was quite several blasts during the day. Actually, was you could hear and you can feel because it will shake the windows and walls as well.
So there was a potential of, when you're traveling around in Kiev in that day, there was a potential of getting hit. It could have happened.
Absolutely. That was a full-scale war. No one knew what was targeted. No one knew how the air defense is capable of coping with some of them. Not all, some, the percentage. What air defense was able to took down in the beginning of large-scale war was much less than it is at the moment. It was less than half. So now it has improved thanks to foreign help. But at that moment, it was Estonian anti-tank missiles, javelins, what we gave them. Latvians, Lithuanians gave them Stingers. Poles gave their own anti-aircraft things. So there was not very much. Plus Ukrainian own, actually, air defense what they had.
And this support was given briefly before the war started, right? A few weeks or a week before.
Yeah, I was in Borispol military airfield 18th of February. So it was 6 days before the full-scale war started, and we delivered them Javelin anti-tank missiles.
I'm glad we did.
Absolutely, because as Ukrainians have told us, it was maybe not very, very large amount, but it played a critical role in Battle of Kiev.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that Estonian javelins donated before the war started were used to deter Russian forces trying to surround Kiev.
Not only deterring, they were hitting the concrete,
destroying the tanks
and armored vehicles.
Yes, and well, that brings to the question. I'm skipping some now, but actually, that Estonia has given at one point the largest percentage of its military GDP, military budget, which was at one point up to 33%, I believe. So why are we giving so much?
Well, for Estonia, it's thing of principles. In 1939, Estonia found itself to be alone. And when we were left alone, or we happened to be alone in a world, we were occupied by Russians, basically Soviets. And this occupation lasted a long time, until 1991, when we got our independence back. And then the basis for Estonian security and foreign policy has been, since we got our independence back, that never again alone. But it's not only about us, that, hey, we don't want to be alone. That's also about the other democratic nations who are fighting authoritarian states' aggression, like Ukraine at the moment. So we are not leaving and letting them also be left alone. So we have had our 24th of February, which is, by the way, Estonian Independence Day, actually. So we will fight it back, actually, to change the meaning back to the Victory Day. So we have had it with the same neighbor, the same Moscow attacking us. And at the moment, we decided already before the large-scale war started that we will help them. 2 years before large-scale war, Estonia was one of the very few ones who actually gave lethal weapons to Ukraine. It's not much known, but we gave
Makarov pistols.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's somehow someone can smile at hey Makarov pistols, but hey, come on, it's pistol. It's shooting bullets. So yeah, and if you are giving a couple of thousands of them, it's already something.
Yeah.
So yeah, we gave little weapons to Ukraine to help them to protect themselves, but not only themselves, not only Ukraine. It's also we see it as Russia is a threat for Estonia, the only threat in our region, and to make this threat smaller, we are giving weapons to Ukrainians, and they are using it. And with every tank, they are able to annihilate or destroy with weapons we have given. This threat against us is getting smaller. So that's very pragmatic, in parallel with idealistic and ideal worldview, very pragmatic approach as well.
Yes, and according to that, then for some countries in Europe, like Germany or Spain, donating to Ukraine meant changing their foreign policy quite a lot. But for Estonia, nothing actually changed. We followed principle. We followed the rules that were set in '91 that Estonia is never alone, and so other countries will be never alone. There was not huge shift in the foreign policy, right, for the weapons to be donated.
Well, yes, you're right. Yeah, for us, definitely not. But for some countries, uh, it meant a change. You mentioned Germany, but also Finland,
Oh yeah.
Sweden, which
Yeah.
decided that they will now apply for membership in NATO. By the way, a high-level Swedish security and defense official have also said that giving Ukraine military aid, what Sweden has now given, is the best investment in Swedish security policy for decades. So I think this realization and this pragmatic approach is not valid only in case of Estonia.
Well, that is weird to hear. Thinking about Sweden's position compared to Estonia, they're relatively safe. I mean, but still, if they feel that way, then yeah, this has changed like the entire Nordic countries' foreign policies, and Finland and Sweden wanting to join NATO. What do you think is the greatest obstacle to them joining NATO?
I think I see that they are joining. So there's at the moment there's I think not much obstacles. There's a need to get ratification from Hungary and Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
They need to negotiate some things with Turkey, I think, but it's doable. I
It's
really
doable.
believe it's doable.
Okay. So the next question is a little bit, it gives me the sense of pride as an Estonian. So you actually mentioned this to me that when all embassies left after the war broke out, the hot war in 24th of February, only 3 embassies remained open in Kiev, and one of them was Estonian. Was that deliberate or?
Yeah, in that sense, it was deliberate. Nobody forced our guys to stay there. But
Of course.
different countries have different procedures in security field as well. So some embassies left Kiev already week before the large-scale war started, and first day of the large-scale war, the evening, the feeling was that Russia made a huge effort to circle Kiev. So many left evening of first day of the war, and we also sent a few cars away to the western direction already on the 24th. In the morning of 25th, I decided also that we will take our team and move to Lviv.
Mhm.
But our military attaché and his aide asked whether they can stay, continue to work.
Voluntarily.
Absolutely. And as our Ministry of Defense agreed with that as well, they stayed in Kiev. So I took the rest of the team and we went to Lviv, but two from our team stayed in Kiev. Besides that, and they didn't left at all. So they stayed, worked there March, April, then we returned already. And two other embassies which stayed in Kiev were the Poland, Polish ambassador, stayed in Kiev, and Vatican. So three embassies holded their flag flying, and not only flag, but that meant that they were at least in minimum amount manned as well.
It is so weird to think about the reasons behind why those nations stayed with their embassies. I mean, I understand Estonia. I'm from Estonia. I understand Poland because right now they seem like inseparable with Ukraine.
Absolutely, they are closest ally, I think, for Ukraine, and well, again, they had 1939 as well when they were attacked. So being well occupied de facto, not de jure, but Warsaw Pact as well. So they understand very well, I think, Ukraine. So they stayed. Yeah.
Yeah, Ukrainian language, you have said it yourself, is closer to Polish than the Russian.
So have been written that 80% match with Polish language. So some similarities with like Estonians and Finns have, although can be tricky, very tricky. If you are taking two beers and thinking that you can speak fluently Finnish, very silly mistakes can be made and scandal can be international, actually.
Yeah. There's a joke that if you are drunk, you can speak Finnish. No Estonian will understand you, but you sound Finnish. So.
And no Finn can understand you either.
No Finn can understand you either.
No, it's not so easy.
Goes both ways.
Yeah, there are words now I can understand Ukrainian. I cannot freely speak small talk maybe in Ukrainian, but but I can understand. And to be in Poland, you can recognize already some words, and that's similar.
So if you work with Ukrainians, if a Ukrainian comes who does not speak English, let's say, then you communicate in Russian with them.
It's not so easy anymore.
No.
You, of course, they can understand it's not the Russian who speaks with them this Russian language, because our accent, the Baltic accent, is very wooden, or I don't know how even to call it in English. Probably our English language is also sounds with nice accent, actually. But yeah, they can understand that you are not Russian, and they can answer you, but not so eagerly anymore, because this war, the atrocities what have been committed under occupation by Russians have turned many Ukrainians looking after their roots. Before large-scale war, traveling in some parts of Ukraine, there are regions which were, so to say, Russian language regions. I'm not saying Russian speaking, but Russian language regions where they spoke Russian, but in heart they were, and from inside they were huge Ukrainian patriots. And nationality was not connected with language. Now it has changed. how it's called, electronic language learning programs. I don't mention it names, otherwise you are saying I'm advertising it once again.
I think it's
Said that they have got more than 1.6 million new Ukrainian language learners joined after the large-scale war started. So I guess it's not just patriotic foreign nationals. It's probably Ukrainians who are upgrading their Ukrainian language knowledge at the moment.
so weird. We're seeing not the birth of a culture, but the birth of their like the sense of identity, really separating that from the Russian identity now. Before that, it was more mingled, I guess.
They have themselves said, some of them, some military guys, that they didn't believe. Also, from 2014, so the first disappointment came 2014 when Russia took the Crimea and attacked eastern Ukraine. That Ukrainians didn't expect something like that from Russians. They fought against Nazi Germany in the Second World War together somehow, and now thing like that. So they felt like they were stabbed in the back, and they said that it is not getting over. There's no turning back. Too many lives have been lost in a very, very sadistic way as well.
Yeah, I see. It's far beyond the point of no return. But I'll circle back to a question about Estonia, where we gave 33%, 1/3 of our military capabilities. Another question connected to that is, don't we need it to defend ourselves? It's you kind of answered this, but I get a lot of this question by the viewers that we need that weaponry, or Americans saying that we need to figure out our own, problems before we can help other nations. What about Estonian security?
Once again, in our case, it's against why we need weapons. We need weapons against Russia, because that's the only threat we can face here in this region. So we can put it to the very simplistic math. Basically, every tank, every armored vehicle, every artillery system, or airplane, helicopter can be counted. So using those weapons in Ukraine is getting the number of threat against us smaller. As the recent numbers every morning, it's like looking. No, it's, I don't know. I like the black humor also in the large scale war time again as well, because it can keep you sane.
Yeah.
So you're taking it as a sports results in every morning. Yeah, sorry to say, but you are looking, okay, today so many less Russian militaries against Estonia or Ukraine or our other neighbors, so many less tanks, so many less armored vehicles. So tank which is destroyed, helicopter which is shot down, airplane which has been shot down can never attack Estonia because they are not existing anymore. So it's minus 3,000 tanks, minus 6,000 armored vehicles. Yep. It's the amount. It's hard to imagine for myself. It's like someone is telling you that, hey, can you imagine how big is the amount of money when we are putting in front of you $1 billion, physical amount? I have never owned such money, so it's very hard for me to imagine what pile it can be.
Yeah.
The same is to put 3,000 tanks, one by one, from Pskov. They came against us 1991 from Pskov Brigade. No, Pskov Brigade have been demolished so much by the Ukrainians. Thank you, Ukraine, by the way, for that. That they cannot threaten us
Yeah.
in such a manner they potentially did 1 year ago. So let's, at the end of the day, it's sometimes pure math.
Thank you for that explanation. I hope it really satisfies the commentators who ask this question time and time again. I have explained it, but I think this more simplistic and thorough way will really get to the viewers. So this is why we're giving so much. And we're actually, as the Swedes put it, we are investing in our future.
Absolutely. And as our head of the military, General Herem, has also said that at the moment we have more anti-tank systems in Estonia left than there are tanks in Western Military District in Russia. So it's pure math. Thanks to Ukrainian very, very hard job. They are bearing the burden at the moment, giving their lives.
Yes, so would you agree with my sentence? I've said it to my viewers many times, and people call me very. It's outrageous to them. I say that if it wouldn't be Ukraine, it would be Estonia. I've said this sentence. Could it be said like that?
If I'm talking about threat, the threat is there, and we are taking it seriously. That's why we also belong to NATO.
Mm-hmm.
And being part of NATO is absolutely different situation than Ukraine. We are helping them, helping more and more every month, basically every week. We are giving, or the other countries are giving, NATO countries included, some new system what seem to be quite unrealistic, even 9 or 10 months ago.
Yeah.
But to be part of NATO means that we have allies, and if something attacks us, it's attack against the other allies as well. That's the basic rule of NATO, and that's what we are actually counting on: self-defense plus allies.
Mm-hmm.
And we have followed this rule by ourselves when Estonia sent our guys to Afghanistan to help United States there. We were there together with Brits and Danes, and Estonians have lost their life as well, actually, in Afghanistan.
And what's really what I admire about my country is that yes, we rely on NATO, but our military spending has never, I think, come down from 2.1%.
It has been, I think, around 2.
2%.
Yeah. I'm not sure that it has been always above 2, but it has been around 2. And that's what you need if you have a, sorry to say, crazy neighbor like that.
Yes, but other NATO, like it's stated in the NATO founding document that countries need to have over 2% of GDP per military, I think.
That's the rule for NATO, but no one will kick out a country when they are putting less there.
Yeah.
Let's now. This is the moment when we can say, and the others also have to face and look at the mirror, that we are living in a world where you need to be able to defend yourself and other sensible and democratic countries as well. Otherwise, a madman will come and turn the situation, and that's not the world we want to live, actually.
Yes, definitely, I agree. I now have a question about your years in the Foreign Intelligence Agency. I know questions about that are a little bit shady, so if you can or can't answer me, but what do you think, has the war made it more difficult for Estonian foreign intelligence agents than to get information from the Kremlin or from the top brass in Russia?
as we in service said, that one cannot ask everything, but the answers will be somehow limited.
Yeah.
So I can describe some principles, how I can see based on my experience. Russia as a target has always been difficult, but geography gives you the playground. So we in Estonia, but also I will say the whole West actually don't have luxury to choose simple targets, because it will not help you at the end of the day. So Russia has been a difficult target. Wartime somehow makes it even more difficult, because traveling is limited.
Yeah.
So you need to reach out to the interesting target somehow. So this is a more difficult part, but on the other side, it can create you a new opportunities as well. It has happened during the Soviet time in a similar way, as the way Russians are fighting the war has not changed almost at all for last 100 years. They are raping, they are torturing, they are doing every horror thing you can imagine. Not all the Russian officers are monsters. So some of them can have click in their head when they think that, hey, I would like to change a world a little bit better place, and I'm ready to cooperate with services from free world to do it. So that's the principle I can describe. Not more details.
And would I be right to assume that Ukrainian foreign intelligence agencies are working the same way? They're trying to get the officers who are potentially willing to change?
Of course, because and Ukrainians are very, very good. They have free services, main ones, let's say, that's the counterintelligence service. They have military intelligence service and foreign intel service. And as I said, Ukraine has been in war against Russia almost 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in a war, you need to work. You don't have other options. So otherwise, you will lose everything. If your country will lose against Russia, that means you will lose your family, you will lose your own life as well. So they are forced to be successful. And we, in a free world, we are helping them to be successful.
And some things I've seen the Ukrainian intelligence do, some social media photos the Russian soldiers post, and then a HIMARS attack is ordered. All these details I see, and I'm in awe of how clever they are and how they are able to pick their targets, even for just an artillery attack.
That's once again, you need to be successful.
Yeah.
So you try to find ways, and Ukrainians are smart. They are damn smart. We didn't know very much about Ukraine. As Zelensky said in a New Year's speech, that last year Ukraine influenced world, and world started to get to know Ukrainians. I didn't know very much about Ukrainians. I didn't know that in Dnipro they produced, maybe even now, but it's complicated at the moment, produced rocket engines for NASA.
What?
Exactly. So they are building better so-called Russian helicopters than Russians are building, actually. Their engines are better. They had, and now they are renovating it, largest airplane in the world.
Yeah.
It was constructed in Ukraine, not somewhere in hypothetical Soviet Union. No, it's Ukrainian factories, Ukrainian engineers. Antonov building airplanes before war. They will continue, I'm pretty sure. Helicopter factory, Motor Sich, making those same engines what Mria, the largest airplane, used.
Mhm.
So they are damn smart. They in IT field they are smart.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
in 1 year before the large-scale war, of course, 18,000 IT students graduated per 1 year.
In Ukraine.
Yeah, 18,000. That's something. So there have to be talented people among them. And if you are fighting against talented people and you are bearing losses daily in amounts, you have to blame yourself. That was message we all know to whom.
Yeah. I mean, the Ukrainian drone production Ukroboronprom, you know the company?
That's the military-industrial complex. It consists of different bodies. So they are creating weapons themselves.
Yeah.
Not bad, but of course, if we are looking where the Western capabilities are, then that's impressive, of course, and that's good because West means more or less NATO. Once again, happy to be in NATO.
Yeah, I saw this drone hasn't come out, but they promised that during this year it will come out. The supposed flight range of a drone was 1,000 kilometers. I don't know if this is info ops or not, but if it is true, then wow.
Something is flying and hitting
Engels Air Base
Engels Air
and,
Base as well, actually.
what
So
is it? Yeah.
or air bases in Crimea as well, actually. So well,
Even we, the allies, don't know what they have. Maybe you do, but I don't. And if I don't, the internet don't. So this is something that, like, they know how to keep secrets in that area.
that's absolutely right as well, and that's a huge respect. Now let's take, for example, also August and September and October when
Izium, yeah.
everybody thought that the priority is Kherson.
Yeah.
Maybe it was priority, but then suddenly they deoccupied Kharkiv Oblast and then took the Kherson as well, actually. So
They got
absolutely,
both.
they got both. Yeah, well, absolutely well done. So also in case of OPSEC matters as well.
I have noticed the info ops that they feed, because I, as a military blogger, I get my information from public sources, from Telegram that soldiers have put up themselves, not from official Ukrainian. I don't use the official like websites. I specifically use the soldiers' phones and telegrams, and I use Twitters that, like, regular people in Ukraine do, so I get like the first-hand information, and I can sometimes see, okay, this bit of information, it has to be fed to the people by the Ukrainian info ops, so that military bloggers like me and others around the world would blow it up, and the Russians would see it and they would react. And I've seen some ops, and I know this is not verified, but I will report it because it has a part in it.
That's also quite often also called the fog of war as well, and sometimes both sides are interested in to create this fog of war,
Yeah.
but sometimes it creates itself
The ghost of Kiev.
as well. That's the legend. Definitely.
Yeah. I remember one case, it was after taking Kherson, a few 3-4 days after, the Kinborn Spit is right over the Dnipro River.
Yeah.
And it's militarily not important in any way, but there was a video, like a very cool Hollywood-looking video of Ukrainian special forces forcing it with motorboats. It was too good not to show it to the people, but I was sure it was an info ops, because why would they go there? It's just a suicide mission. It's not important, right? And
they are good.
turned out it wasn't real, I guess, but
they are good. That's we will see it. We will see it where they hit next. and I'm pretty sure Ukrainians want to surprise us, as they want to surprise Russians.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember very clearly a month or two before the invasion the taking back of Izium and around those areas, something changed. Before that, there was a lot of material and you couldn't even pick, there was so much. And then immediately, I don't know what changed in their military, but suddenly some soldiers deleted their telegrams, some soldiers didn't post information. It was a lot harder to get info. So that means their military is kind of disciplined not to let out information like that.
It's once again, yeah, it depends. They are rotating the militaries as well and taking to the rear. So I would like to think as well that they are as disciplined as possible. There's always a human factor. You cannot exclude it 100%, but more or less seems respect to Ukrainians.
What are your predictions for the outcome of the war?
Well, I have predicted it. Ukrainians will win. Ukraine will win.
Simple and easy.
Will take time, definitely. Take time more than we hope. But I personally believe that they can do it quicker than we expected.
I'm glad to hear that. I completely agree. Yes, I think Ukraine will win. But could you give any time span? It's a very dangerous road, I know, but
that's difficult. That's difficult. It depends very much also of the Western aid as well. How we help Ukrainians to help themselves and us again. So let's not only their war. It's the free world war against the authoritarian, actually. So depends very much on what Ukrainians are able to get, how quickly they are able to put it into action, and then it can happen, actually.
Let's say then Ukraine wins the war. What is the outcome for Russia?
Well, that's now hard to predict. There's different scenarios, and what we can also see sometimes in the West that it maybe sometimes can even seems dangerous for some countries as well, and it can even hold them back to give Ukraine all the help Ukraine is asking, because the unpredictability is so big. We can remember, we as Estonians, we can remember 1990, 1991, when we were also said by some Westerners that, hey, please don't rock the boat, Soviet Union, because it is dangerous where the nukes are getting, etc. Well, don't come to tell us. We were occupied, actually. We were suffering for decades under occupation. Don't come to tell us that don't rock the boat. I think we cannot also tell Ukrainians that, hey, don't fight back your territory. Absolutely not right. I think West should be ready for different scenarios, including this huge empire cracking down to a smaller pieces, and then there's a need to safeguard some maybe interesting objects.
Yeah, it's so bizarre for me to think. I've grown up knowing Russia as a country as Russia, and before that, from stories, it was the Soviet Union, and for the suddenly Russian Empire and the Soviet Union and the Tsar Empire, it's the same empire. It's an autocratic empire expanding,
For some centuries, but not more. That's also, at the moment, we can see also a fight for history as well. Because Russia was not called Russia from the beginning of the history or something like that. It has been called
Kiev
Russia It has been different, let's say, territories, different areas. The Russia, which at the moment has created a colonial empire, they are colonizing or colonized its neighbors, not overseas nations, but they are colony, classical colony. That was Moscovia or Moskalia, actually. It was called like that a few centuries ago. We can say that Ukraine is definitely older. I like very much also the sense of humor in Ukraine as well. They are not smart only in engineering, but their ability to make jokes or funny memes are also marvelous. And one of them I like very much is when you have a few pictures and years, like year 1000 something, and there's a church, and there was and we built churches in Kiev when there was forest and swamp in the Moscow area, actually. So
it's true. Yeah. But as you mentioned, they have colonies, right? So could you say that Chechnya, for example, and Dagestan are colonized by Russia right now?
Well, they have fought their wars also already for some centuries. It's not naturally, let's say, Russian area, or it's hard to argue with that, actually. So they are forcing some territory to obey their rule, and they are not counting the people there. Actually, they are ready to kill all the people and bring others instead of the killed ones.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ethnicities map of Russia. There's 50% living in Russia are Russians, and other identify as different ethnicities who are Finno-Ugric, Mari people, whichever Asian, people, so different. And if Russia were to split, all of these people groups would be wanting their own country or identity, I guess.
We'll see. We don't know, actually, what whether they all want to have their own country, or they will ally, or what will be the
federation.
We'll see.
Okay, and the last question today is, I know your term in Ukraine as an ambassador is coming to an end. What would be next for you after Ukraine?
In case of Estonia, ambassador's term is 4 years. So other diplomats, it's 3 years, but for ambassador, it's 4 years. And yes, my 4-year in Ukraine will be completed in 31st of July this year. So we'll see what will be the next challenge. There's a possibility to continue as a diplomat abroad in some embassy. There's a possibility to come back to Tallinn to work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or elsewhere. So still early to say it out.
Okay. I want to really thank you for coming and having time for this. It was a really pleasant conversation, and thank you for being part of the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting, and thank you for accepting sitting in a studio, not doing it via the let's say screen and cameras.
Yeah, and thank you to the viewer who is watching, and you should subscribe to the channel to be notified. I upload twice a week in the podcast channel. Until my next video, Slava Ukraini.
Heroim slava.